to bed. And he's also dumb, even though he's blind. He's not very fun. He has his own talk show. It's every gamer's dream. It's a crazy little talk show, and it's called Cookies and Cream.
2025 is definitely one of the years of all time for gaming. Even with GTA 6's delay to 2026, this year had no shortage of incredible indies and AAA titles, from the self-published Hades 2 to the AA juggernaut Expedition 33, rounding out with the heavy hitters from Donkey Kong Bonanza, Death Stranding 2, Doom the Dark Ages, and the list goes on. This year had a wide variety of intense and jaw-dropping experiences, but there's one title that did something different, that stood out to me amongst the rest. No, not Silksong, but that was also incredible. I'm talking about one that came in with an awe-inspiring narrative that did something quite original. No, not Ghost of Yotei, but that also slapped. I mean, one with an approach to exploration in such an unapologetic format, and look, it's Hell Is Us, okay? Now, I was hesitant on picking this one up. Reviews were mostly favorable, and the marketing lead up posed a ton of questions. Is this a true Souls-like? What are these new creatures referred to as the Calamity? What is this world of Hadia? Oh, one of the lead minds from Deus Ex Human Revolution is heading this game in studio? Alright, shut up and take my money. See, Hell Is Us may seem like something you've played before, but it's not. It's unlike anything I've played before. In a year filled with numerous Game of the Year contenders, this title does something few games ever dare to. Respect the player.
I was born here, but I grew up on the outside. I spent years trying to get in.
Why come back?
My parents, I had to find them. I needed to confront them about the past.
I love you. Never come back.
Whatever was happening here, I was now part of it.
This war is a blessing. We failed to stop the Calamity. How did you know your parents were still in Hadia?
I didn't. All I remembered was that my father was the village blacksmith. There, I felt a connection. To this country. To Hadia.
Choose your next move wisely.
You pissed off the wrong people.
I want to piece together whatever is happening here, and you want to stop it.
It became my burden.
Look at you. Compromised by your emotions.
I won't stop.
Interesting. Let's continue.
Now, if you have only looked at some reviews online, you may need a brief recap of the story outline here. Hell Is Us centers on Remy, a former United Nations peacekeeper returning to his war-torn, isolated homeland of Hadia to search for his parents amid a brutal civil war and a supernatural calamity that has unleashed terrifying creatures from within. The game itself opens up with an unsettling figure dosing us with some truth serum to recount our memories within Hadia's borders. It's a quick setup that takes some bold swings I'll get into shortly. Remy himself is not the usual protagonist, as he is quite literally a diagnosed sociopath. Now, playing as someone with these psychological conditions was not on my bingo card this year, but in doing so, we have the setup for an unforgettable adventure. First, we gotta break down how this thing is played. Similar to Souls-like games, we have a third-person central camera as we move around environments that emphasize the story around us. Early on, we come across a farmer who is down on his luck. After some brief dialogue, he mentions how 3 of his sons passed in which there was a burial on top of the hill for them, a sight we passed on our way to meet this guy. This is the first sign of brilliance in this game's writing. A lot of these moments are not force-fed to the player, meaning you are given the opportunity to pick up on clues or miss out on their connections entirely. See, when Remy was a young kid, his parents smuggled him out of the country for reasons unknown. Meaning, while we have some basic knowledge of the area, 99% of the land is brand new for us to explore and decipher. Going in, all we are armed with is a necklace from our mom and information quite vague regarding our dad being a blacksmith. The rest is up to you. Which is a great segue to break down how you solve this mystery of the whereabouts of your parents. All of the characters you meet are organized in a web chart on a little PDA you bring up, showing connections for areas, people, events, etc. As you gain information, this will be added into their log to review, meaning meeting NPCs in the world, you can ask them basic points regarding Hadia, its divided parties, the war, and the creatures littering the landscape. We can also ask specific information once we learn it throughout our journey. At first, all you can ask is, "Ayo, you recognize this necklace?" But like Immortality's system, one scene branches into others, and before you know it, you have a wide net to cast on people to learn about who they are, their place in the world, how you can help each other, and ultimately come one step closer to finding your parents and solving the crisis this ancient land finds itself in. Although be sure to take notes, as there are no map markers. If an NPC mentions how wind chimes guide their direction in a forest, you better take notes. Find a tied-up priest who's under guard and have him give you some directions from where he heard truck noises, possibly the same truck you are trailing. Well, best follow those directions with a compass and then keep an eye out for tire tracks with the taken notes. The environment never forces you to notice its storytelling, never does, but will greatly reward a player who is observant and utilizes the tools provided. Nowhere is this more apparent than with the good deeds system. The side quests in this game are not labeled as such. In many cases, you will find objects in the world that you will have to uncover what they can be used for. While you have your own objective to accomplish, there are many trapped in this war zone on both sides, which you can elect to help out, or not. Do however you will. Whether it be a young girl trapped behind enemy lines in her family's bombed house, or soldiers caught in a convoy ambush that need help making their way through a creature infestation. Even UN workers trapped behind enemy lines. The list goes on. Again, the game makes these moments feel organic, but even then takes it a step further. Take Far Cry 3, right? Great game. Say you find a side objective that tasks you one night in the game with saving a group of town folks from a raid. Yeah, that's on my map marker. Sweet, I'm gonna take the next 200 in-game hours to find random artifacts, get tattoos on my arm, and 1v1 Voss, then I'll come back to it. The sense of urgency in a lot of games, alongside immersion, is gone, as the game is holding the player's hand, focusing more so on the spectacle of the encounter versus the reason and agency behind it. A lot of games in our modern era also suffer from this. Hell Is Us never tells you whether or not an objective is timed or has a fail state, meaning we as a player have to identify that sense of urgency and put ourselves in Remy's shoes for how he would react. Perfect example. Early on, you can find a bunker of some peacekeepers who stay behind to help as many as they could. The mission doesn't go very well, however, they are safe and barricaded underground, meaning we can get them some medications and take our time as they have a low threat level from our eye test. As a player, it's safe to bet they are doing all right and we can go on our merry way for now. Perhaps later we can find ways to even help them out. Take another example. On the contrary, deep below the marshlands, you can enter these sewer systems where innocent civilians hid during the bombings. In the distance, you can hear a baby crying. It's eerie, unsettling, and jump scares galore. If you're able to fight your way through, you can find this young child with her mother. Not much conversation happens other than her fear the kid is going to starve. Granted, the child screams may also alert enemies, and they also could have been the enemy mocking us. But all we have now are some empty bottles. Do you try to help the kid? Your first reaction may be, oh fudge, where do I find fresh milk in a war-torn country? You may remember that farmer earlier had one cow still doing all right. One trip back and we get fresh milk for the baby. The mother thanks us, and thanks to us, they are able to move through the country undetected. This was a beautiful aha moment until I talked to one of my friends who had a different outcome. See, he got the same quest, but then elected not to do anything for a few in-game hours. As many games treat these tasks like a checklist to do before credits roll. When he made it back to the sewers, he found an unfortunate end that I cannot say on YouTube. I mentioned earlier that this game takes place during an ongoing civil war, and it does not shy away from this. You can see towns bombed to HE double hockey sticks, discarded corpses in potholes, houses raided and innocents laid out on tables for disgusting acts, group lynchings. The horrors war brings out of people are on full display, and since Hell Is Us has no in-game waypoint, you have to remember where you are and how to get around through your memory, meaning you have to pay attention even more to the unsettling reality around you. Whether that's through an audio clue, like a violinist at a makeshift gravesite, or a visual one, like a bed of blue flowers that look just like a scribbled clue found before. Almost like the old school Zelda titles, where you would get a vague sentence and then would venture out into the world to make sense of it. The same style is here, but executed to an insane degree. The levels themselves are separated by our APC transport, meaning each individual zone feels expertly crafted and intentional with how backtracking down the road discovers brand new elements to the game you never knew existed on even a third walkthrough of said zone, meaning so many secrets are just hidden right under your feet. It's a brilliant loop in exploration that feeds back into the growth of Remy over the course of the adventure. It must have been a necessary choice now to have Remy be a sociopath in order to take away the emotions of someone who may be witnessing these atrocities for the first time. Someone who enters this world would clearly break, but Remy having this condition means that we as the player are the blank slate to pull from. He's looking for answers that many may not want. See, we project our reactions of these sites onto Remy, and this game does not shy away from real-world issues in our world today, further making us connect to those who are trapped in awful situations, regardless of how many centuries the conflict covers. Now, a lot has been said about Remy and his place in the world, and of course, being in the Civil War, he needs to find ways to defend himself. Early on, we come into contact with these buildings. Soon you realize bullets do nothing, and we need to rely on these ancient weapons imbued with special powers to put them to rest. The combat is much like the older Souls games, where you have a stamina management and specific perks you can assign with your weapons. With equipables on the side, you can whip out on the fly to make the enemies go bye-bye. Whether they be curved swords, dual axes, long blades, you've been here before. On top of our hand-to-hand makeshift weapons, we also have a drone we receive alongside an APC that both aids us in traveling between major areas and offers us cool powers. Things like the ability to dash in combat or cause decoys, immobilize enemies, and it even comes synced with a handy-dandy flashlight for those deep stretches into the unknown. Early on, these enemies leave a lasting impact. one of my favorite moments coming from a base held by the Sabinians, one of the world's main factions at war. The town was recently bombed, in which they had to fortify defenses with what they could. Parts of the town were overrun by those creatures, so they were left unattended, as well as the unfortunate civilians caught in the crossfire. Climbing up on one edge of the map with 2 guards, you could see these creatures casually standing in weird positions, movements uncanny to the human eye, faces absorbed into oblivion. These people had guns, but that wouldn't help anything. One was shaking with a cigarette, the other tapping their foot, looking elsewhere. And I decided to turn my arse around and go back from whence I came. Their presence is eerie, and evokes the same feelings the first time I watched The Walking Dead, where you want to stay away as far as possible from them, as it only takes one of them to overrun a group and slam you into the ground, 6 feet under. Although these beings are much more horrifying than zombies, as they have personas that can merge out from their body and turn you to mush in a heartbeat, as well as closing long distances in the blink of an eye, even creating massive time paradoxes where they will continue to spawn from, paradoxes that arise from inhumane acts of war. The combat feels familiar, and thank goodness for that, as much of what you fight against are beyond your comprehension. Early in your travels, you may find these hidden bunkers and giant towers. There's clearly more to these creatures and their connection to the land, but a lot of the journey is taking the scraps left by everyone in the country to piece together the overarching story. Every single person has a piece to the puzzle, meaning each encounter in some capacity matters, further fueling your descent into the unknown, making the combat systems serviceable to the bread and butter of this title, which isn't a bad thing. It's tense, unnerving, and adds the right amount of fear during exploration to give those moments of solitude more weight than most Resident Evil save rooms. Even with low health, you can time your attacks to regain hit points back in Bloodborne-esque fashion, making passive and aggressive tactics a dance you have to balance in this war zone. The music and OST are beautiful yet confusing in such a brilliant way, constantly tricking you into whether now is a time to let your guard down. The synths give this title a feel of something new, like you're in a place you shouldn't be, putting together a mystery that has been left unsolved for generations. I know I've said a lot about this game already, but the pace is incredible. Nothing beats fighting your way through these supernatural hordes in a horrid landscape, only to find a small nook in the mountain, a place with secrets galore, and as the OST kicks in, you go full-on detective mode, piecing together your next move, maybe allowing you to venture into another area with this beautiful landscape. And you start noticing that while there's all these horrors committed by man on this land, there's something quite peaceful, tranquil about the ancient grounds underneath us that we only have a glimpse of. The history of Hadia being just as enticing as the smaller stories of those stranded within its borders, which breathes more life into your encounters with those in each zone. Their views and opinions morphing the origins of Hadia like it's a true crime and we're getting to the bottom of it. The only way you will end up piecing this game together and seeing the finale is if you accept its offerings and put yourself in Remy's shoes. The game handles the growth of Remy and us as the player quite well. We start off in the early game alone, in over our head, and distant. Soon we start taking all these creatures on one by one, then in groups, followed by hordes, and ultimately shutting down time loops altogether. Exploring the countryside, we become more accustomed to the secrets and shortcuts held within, making traversal easier. Character NPCs reunite and we eventually find ways to navigate the war between 2 opposing sides that have been deadlocked for generations. We even find a reporter who journeys with us in our APC and is able to offer insight on strange objects we find, further cementing our knowledge of Hadia. Above all else, Remy finally learns to open up to the world, accepting the emotions others feel while not keeping his own locked away. It is a powerful transition, a slow burn in the story that is nailed through its near 30-hour runtime, mainly because the point of the game isn't that you are here to fix the problem of Hadia, more so to understand them, which is the ultimate power move this game makes. Yes, it respects the gamer. It trusts you with the world that is laid out for you to explore and the knowledge to seek. It has secrets locked away, but through time you work out ways to peel its layers. Dissecting a real-world catastrophe through video games is the definition of gaming with a purpose. I also couldn't find an organic way to put this in the script, but I have to say your main character's hair, it's annoying. It's like a discount Mark Zuckerberg. I said a lot of great things about this game. I had to get that off my chest. And it's not a perfect game by any measure, but anyways, war isn't simple. It's convoluted. Anyways, war isn't simple. It's convoluted. Power struggles, groups bunkered in their beliefs, others with constant shifting opinions. There's what the media portrays and what people inside the country's borders see. How the origin of conflict manifests differently for every new person involved, further convoluting the narrative for the next generation. Then how powers will take and manipulate said conflicts, kindling that erupts and frustrations that never seem to go away. There's how each side feels about one another, and then how they look inward on themselves to justify actions made. At what point is a line drawn in the sand, or enough is simply enough? Every day, people who are driven to acts you never would believe they could make, pushing them beyond the breaking point and committing such atrocities. Students, parents, EMTs, the list goes on. Almost as if these self-fulfilling atrocities are time paradoxes themselves, doomed to repeat over such a historic piece of land most of the world only has a slim piece of knowledge on. See, Hell Is Us, it may not be the game of the year for 2025, but it certainly is the one I won't forget.
Father told us to hide when they came to our house. Then they took him away. Mother said I couldn't play outside anymore. Everyone had fled. She said the country was sick, but we would be okay. Mother always said monsters didn't exist. I thought they lived under my bed. We were both wrong. They live inside our heads.